What is up, everybody? Thank you for stopping by to talk a trio of Dynasty trades involving Jahmyr Gibbs. If you want to go ahead and jump ahead to that first of the three deals, not offended, go ahead and click in the time cards. Go for it. Before that, I want to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Chew. Check me out on Twitter and here, of course, on YouTube at Father Dynasty. And if you wouldn't mind, if you have a second or two, go ahead and like this video. You know, if you like this, if you like content like this, let me know and I will keep, of course, producing it. If you want to go ahead and subscribe, so seeing more content like this, as well as the full podcast episodes covering fatherhood and fantasy football, I would greatly appreciate that. But yeah, without further ado, let's jump in and talk about Jahmyr Gibbs. So 17.5 points per game, Jahmyr Gibbs. It has been a roller coaster of a season already. And talking about that point per game average, so ironically enough, just a mere 0.4 points per game higher than his running back counterpart in David Montgomery. It has been an interesting season, to say the least. I think many people who were seeing Jahmyr Gibbs go in the first round of the NFL draft, you see Bijan and he goes in the first round, you expect that. You see Jahmyr Gibbs go in the first round after they get rid of DeAndre Swift, and you think, this is him. This is his chance. He's going to blow up. He's better than DeAndre Swift. He's going to be more utilized than DeAndre Swift. Yes, they paid David Montgomery to essentially play the Jamal Williams role, but he's a better version of Jamal Williams. But we'll ignore that. We'll ignore that the amount he got paid and all that, and the dynamic that Dan Campbell established last year. That's fine. We'll ignore it. You shouldn't have ignored it because they're doing much of the same that they did last season, this season. But one would argue they have two better running backs to fill each of those roles. David Montgomery, a strong runner, and Jahmyr Gibbs, a versatile, explosive weapon out of the backfield. And again, that's no slight on either of the other two guys that they took the jobs of. Of course, DeAndre Swift doing tremendously well in Philly. But looking at Jahmyr Gibbs, you know, he's averaging 5.3 yards per carry. He's got about 5.5 targets per game. Again, that's a pretty good balance in terms of utilizing his skill set and what he can do. In the last 3 games, just to highlight how well he's done, of course, some of this has been amidst David Montgomery being injured. RB5, RB2, RB1. And this is in the last 3 games. He's done well. He has really come into his own, and again, even earlier in the season when he was not getting as much work, he was still showing good efficiencies in what he was producing, and I think that was really driving fantasy managers insane, thinking, why is he not getting more of a chance? In terms of keep, trade, cut, he is the RB3, and that is one behind Christian McCaffrey at the RB2 and one in front of Breece Hall at the RB4. For myself, I have him at the RB7 in Dynasty, and you can go ahead and check out my full rankings, all positions, at goingfor2.com. And yeah, you know, RB7, much like I've spoken about in a different video about CJ Stroud, you know, I have him lagging a little bit behind to have CJ Stroud at, I believe, QB8. I'm a little leery, not to say that, you know, these rookies, these young guys don't have the talent, but I don't want to just jump to that conclusion. They haven't even finished their first season. You know, I really want to let them finish the season out, let them see how this goes. But again, for a rookie running back to be the top 10 running back in Dynasty, I think that's still a pretty good compliment. And speaking of compliments, let's go ahead and jump into the first deal. So first one, we got a 12-team start 10 PPR half point 10 in premium. We've got Jahmyr Gibbs in a 2024 second for a 2024 first. For me, this is Gibbs in the second, no questions asked. The only reason that this would be different is if we have any indication that 2024 first is going to be a Caleb Williams or, depending on how everything falls throughout the year, Drake May type of pick. Because again, everyone knows, we know the value of the quarterback in Superflex, which of course this is the lens I'm viewing it through, it's just Superflex. But with what we've seen Gibbs do, I know that the running back has been devalued largely in Dynasty, as we think we could just go week to week with it, or at the biggest stretch year to year. And to a degree, I I do agree with that. I do understand that. But I think there's a couple of running backs that I think you do have to consider age, production, and the offense they are in. And Jahmyr Gibbs, I think, is one of those guys. You know, he's produced well. He has produced well even in a committee splitting it with David Montgomery. But again, they each complement one another tremendously well. And while you could view that as a negative in terms of, oh, well, then they're always going to be, kind of in that timeshare with one another. Probably true. But I think you also get the chance to see, hey, when one of them is injured or out or hobbled or what have you, the other one can step up. And it doesn't mean that they're not going to use a Craig Reynolds or whatever to kind of step in for David Montgomery to some degree. But let Jahmyr Gibbs run a little bit. And, they did spend a first-round pick on him, so it's not to say that they're never going to use the guy. But, while you will be, at times, frustrated with the usage that he is getting, given his talent level, I feel like he will get enough usage, and hopefully he will have the most important ability and availability without being run into the ground too much. So you'll be able to utilize him pretty often in Dynasty and in Fantasy. So, again, going with Gibbs and the 2024 second on that one. So jumping over to deal number 2, I've got a 10-team start 9 PPR half-point tenant premium. This one involves a couple more pieces. So we've got Justin Herbert in a 2024 second for Tank Dell, Jahmyr Gibbs, Daniel Jones in a 2024 third. So we've got quarterbacks on each side, but one of them is Justin Herbert and one of them is Daniel Jones. Right off the bat, I mean, if we're trying to, consolidate pieces and see what would we trade what for what, would I trade Justin Herbert for Tank Dell and Daniel Jones? Yes, I would hold on to Justin Herbert in that sense. I would trade that. So would I trade? So I'm really just trying to kind of couple these together, and I see no way where I wouldn't be taking the Justin Herbert in 2024 second side. And this is interesting because, of course, with this deal being done recently, this is someone being able to add Daniel Jones to say, you're still getting a quarterback back. However, I don't know what Daniel Jones' future looks like when it comes to fantasy and everything. I know he just got the contract without knowing the specific ins and outs of it. What are the Giants going to do? I mean, you've got Daniel Jones out for the year. Tyrod Taylor, shout out Virginia Tech alumni, is on the IR, I believe. I forgot if it's for the rest of the season, but he's on the IR. And you have Tommy DeVito just slicing and dicing. Not other defenses, but just his career at this point. And as the Giants continue to plummet, as you have Brian Daboll trying to do whatever he can, last season I think he got the most out of everyone on that team he possibly could have. And this season, instead of it being dealing with wide receiver injuries like he did, and which resulted in him having to play Isaiah Hodgins and getting a lot out of him, he's now having to deal with all of his quarterbacks getting hurt and playing Tommy DeVito. That's tough. That's very tough. And I think that's kind of showing something to him, maybe, with this next draft pick in 2024. Could it be a quarterback? I don't think that's crazy. I don't know how that will work with Cap and with Daniel Jones and his contract, but I feel like you have to consider it. And when you think of that, I would rather take the Justin Herbert in the second side, because despite what Tank Dell has done thus far, despite what Jahmyr Gibbs has done thus far, and despite what I guess you want to call the potential of Daniel Jones, you've got a tried and true top 5 dynasty quarterback, and you have a second in there. So I'm taking Justin Herbert in the second. Thank you very much. So jump into the third of the 3 deals, and this is a 12-team start 10 half-point PPR, half-point tenant premium. So a little bit cleaner on this one. We've got Jahmyr Gibbs for Ty Chandler, a 2024 first and a 2025 second. Now, consider me someone who may be devaluing the running backs a little bit, and I think this is this is, in a way, a pretty savvy move, considering what week Ty Chandler just had. But I would lean the Ty Chandler side. And again, this is without knowing, is this an early first, a mid first, what have you. We don't know what the second's going to be. It's 2025. But if I'm someone, certainly who is rebuilding, why not take the Ty Chandler first and the second side? If I'm someone competing, again, I understand taking the Gibbs side. But when I see that side with Ty Chandler in the first and the second, think about that. Think about what flexibility you have with that. If we've continued to see a devaluation in the running back market, largely in Dynasty, if your league's different, that's fantastic. But I think for a lot of people, I think we've seen there's very few running backs that people would view as appropriately valued for what they produce and their age and their kind of their status at their position in Dynasty. And I think Jahmyr Gibbs is one where, a lot of people were off put by how the beginning of the season went with how he was utilized alongside David Montgomery. And that's going to continue. It may waver from week to week, but I mean, it's going to largely be the two of them together. And in that instance, if I don't necessarily think this is going to become Ty Chandler's backfield like for the rest of the year and even into next year, but he'll get some run now, and you get a first and a second. So this is kind of just pick your poison. How much do you love Jahmyr Gibbs? I like Jahmyr Gibbs. I really do. But I think when I think of the flexibility of what I can do with the Chandler, the first and the second, I would lean towards that. And if Jahmyr Gibbs blows up and does incredible and just doesn't get hurt, I'm okay with that. In some weird way. I know that's largely how people think of the running back. I feel like is unless you're not trading for someone and seeing them go out and be the RB1 and break some record or whatever, then it's kind of what you expected, because you'll often see it's the running back not get hurt, but you see it be so volatile from week to week, and certainly with Jahmyr Gibbs sharing the backfield with David Montgomery, that could be the case. Could be volatile week to week, and you're going to be frustrated with yourself if you see Ty Chandler have a decent week, and you could be like, wow, I could have had Ty Chandler perform and get maybe half or 2/3 as much as Jahmyr Gibbs and also have a first and a second. So I'm taking the Ty Chandler first and second. Thank you very much. So that wraps up the third of the 3 deals for Jahmyr Gibbs. Thanks for stopping by. If you're interested, if you're feeling froggy, go ahead and leap over to the description down below, and I've got some Father Dynasty merch. Got 3 different designs there. We've got the classic Father Dynasty, we've got the Dynasty Daddy, and we've got the I Traded the 101, one of my favorites. Go ahead and check that out. Use the code DADDY10. You get 10% off on your order there. But thanks for stopping by, and happy Dynasty.